Since identifying a potential site here in Redditch for the development of Heart of England Wildlife Park, I've been doing excessive research to make sure that we've actually found the best possible site for our attraction. I've been working with highways consultants, ecologists, archaeologists, and of course the council officers to make sure that the site that we have identified is potentially viable. When doing some of my desk-based research, I actually found a website called explorethepast.co.uk, provided by the Child's Archive. And on this website, I discovered that in the 1960s, there was actually plans to develop a zoo in Redditch, but for whatever reason, the zoo didn't go ahead. I found a project called the Abbey Meadows Master Plan, and as part of that plan there was an intention to build a landscaped zoological gardens which featured incredible big cats such as Siberian tiger, Sri Lankan leopard and even African lions. And also I found that there was an intention to establish a deer park which visitors could walk through. This was all part of a plan to completely revitalise a part of Arrow Valley Park, which now is mainly used by dog walkers and has been let to go to essentially a bit of a wildlife reserve for domestic species. What I can see on this map which I've discovered is that the zoo was proposed for behind the ancient monument which is Bordesley Abbey. And what we can see is that even in the ancient monument's fish ponds, which were used by the monks as a source of protein for their diet, is that they were intending to have species such as sea lions and penguins. Back in the 1960s, I could imagine that this would have been completely acceptable in terms of animal husbandry, but from a 21st century zoological perspective, I can't see how they would make good habitats for those animals whatsoever. Looking through this website, I haven't been able to find much information about why the zoo proposal didn't go ahead, and I've actually asked the council for more information if they have it. To say the council and the council officers were surprised by what I discovered is a bit of an understatement, and in reality nobody at the council seemed to have ever heard of these proposals, and at best there may have been rumours that one day there was a proposal for a Redditch zoo. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to offer me any significant insight whatsoever, so it's very much up to me to continue researching to find out exactly why this Redditch zoo proposed in the 1960s was not fully developed and realised.
That clip that you've just seen was filmed straight after the end of lockdown, and what I'm going to do in this video is bring you right up to September 2020, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to go today to go and meet Colin Cook, the original Redditch zoo man, the guy who proposed the development of Zooland Redditch behind the scheduled monument of Bordesley Abbey over in Abbey Meadows towards the north of Redditch. So what we're going to do today is look at the history behind that proposal, and then in future videos we'll be back to the vlog style approach which we've taken previously, and you can see all of the latest developments for Heart of England Wildlife Park.
Made me
Attracted to the site of Bordesley, because there's lots of other areas in Redditch.
It just seemed to click.
Yeah.
You know, just the sight of it all, unoccupied.
Yeah.
Ideal for getting to and fro for people in cars and that. No, it seemed ready-made for it.
Yeah. Absolutely. How do you think Redditch would be different today if it was built?
Well, Redditch, of course, is a totally different ball game now. The population has increased tremendously, number one, because of the housing estates, which didn't exist in my younger years. And there's no doubt in my mind that you'll get a big attendance.
Yeah.
You know, once you've got it started.
Yeah.
And if you do it right, you'll get the people going. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Because I don't know if you followed Yorkshire Wildlife Park, but 11 years ago that was a field and a barn. Yeah. And now, in my opinion, it's probably the second best zoo in the country in terms of visitor experience. Yeah. And we're being advised by a member of the senior management team there. Yeah. So we're hoping that, with his insight, we can, like you say, get those crowds into Redditch, because there's already a population of 100,000 people in the site.
Well, I think you've made a good start.
Yeah.
You've made a good start. I don't think you'll get any serious opposition. I think you'll get a lot of help.
Yeah.
People will help you. I wish I could.
You said you had support from Downing Street for this site.
Yeah.
So why didn't the zoo get built on Bawdsley Abbey? Because like you said, it would have been a perfect place for.
Well, you see, once they started doing that, then the cemetery, they wouldn't allow it. The local authority wouldn't. They were in favour at first until priority took to the, what do you call it, where they burn us?
Crematorium.
Crematorium.
Yeah.
And the cemetery, like, because that was a new cemetery.
Yeah.
And so it was all stopped, all planning was stopped. But I tried then several places. Tried at Cook Hill, there was a spot there, 5 acres. I thought I might get permission there, but I didn't. Then I tried at a big hall out near Evesham way, I forget the name of it now. I got planning, but then the chap who was selling it to me was crafty. We'd agreed a price, I got planning. Once I got planning, he doubled the price.
Yeah.
So, and then I went up to the top of Fish Hill and the Cotswolds. But I had that little politician, what was his name? Sharp guy, small guy, Conservative, got plenty to say, got a bob on himself, forget his name. Anyway, he put a stop to it up the Cotswold.
Yeah. It's frustrating, isn't
it? So I gave it up. Well, I had no plan in general, only for the first big cuts, because they will always fetch a crowd.
Yeah. And
penguins, waterfowl, that sort of thing. The other plans would have followed suit, because I could do it automatically. I never had anyone to draw anything for me or to do any thinking. I wanted an enclosure, I could build it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still can today.
Yeah. Well, when did you sort of have the last of your animals? When did you get rid of all the exotics?
Well, I got rid of them all. They would all have gone by the 70s. All I've got now is a cat. I like them all. Like, I would love to go and stroke a lion, you know. But you see, I have very strong beliefs. In his teaching, you should treat everything from the smallest insect to the biggest mammal with the same respect. Now, so people would say, why? But his answer is quite simple. That which made you and gave you life also gave life to everything else. And the secret of life is in the heart of everyone, and every creature, every cat, lives a part of this divinity. It never leaves you. You will.
Yeah.
But it'll take time.
It does take
but
time.
Don't take too long.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see it.
Yeah. Absolutely. It'd be great to have you there, really.
This morning I met with Redditch's original zoo man, Colin Cook. Colin had the intention of building a zoo here behind Bawdsley Abbey in the 1960s. He set up a company, Zooland Limited, with the intention of exhibiting big cats such as lions and tigers and leopards here in Abbey Meadows in the heart of Redditch. He also had the plan to exhibit a range of exotic bird species and small primates. Now, the site that we're at right now isn't a million miles away from the site we're looking at, the Heart of England Wildlife Park. We're going to take a look around with the original maps and the original plans to see how Heart of England Wildlife Park will differ from Colin's ambitions that he had in the 1960s. Here in the meadows, just behind the scheduled ancient monument of Bawdsley Abbey, Colin Cook had designed a plan for Zooland Limited, which would have led to the construction of a monkey temple right in the middle of this field just behind me. This monkey temple would have been very similar in construction to similar primate exhibits at Regent's Park Zoo, now called ZSL London Zoo, in the capital. In addition, Colin had planned to exhibit big cats on this very spot. Big cats from African lions to Sri Lankan leopards to Siberian tigers all could have been in Redditch had Colin got his way. And to my left, he'd also planned to create a range of bird aviaries immersed in well-manicured gardens adjacent to a restaurant to serve the guests. I really do wonder what Redditch would have been like in 2020 had Colin got his way back in the 1960s. When Bawdsley Abbey was a functioning monastery, these fish ponds of ancient significance were used as a source of food, and the monks would actively farm fish in these pools and then use the fish as a source of protein in their diet. Since the monks have obviously left the site and there's been the ruin of the abbey, over many years these fish ponds have just become a fantastic habitat for native wildlife such as newts and frogs and lots of migrating birds. However, Colin Cook actually wanted in the 1960s to turn these ancient fish ponds into animal exhibits, and it was his plan to actually put penguins and sea lions in these fish ponds in the middle of Redditch. I'm not so sure what the council would think about that today, but it certainly was an interesting concept nonetheless.
All those months ago, when I first discovered there were plans for a zoo in Redditch in the 1960s, I was amazed that I couldn't find any more information whatsoever about the proposals. But since the media press launch for Heart of England Wildlife Park, we've received several communications from members of the community about the plans, and it's been delightful to meet with some of these people to discuss the proposals for the zoo in Redditch in the 1960s. I'm so fortunate today to be able to access the original plans for the zoo, and I have two maps for the zoological collection which I currently have on loan from Alan Gardner, and also, having met Colin Cook today, he's actually gifted Heart of England Wildlife Park one of the original plans for his zoo in the 1960s, and we'll be able to hopefully have this in our visitor centre when we get Heart of England Wildlife Park up and running next year. So it would be my absolute honour to share these maps with you and hopefully give you an idea of what Redditch Zooland would have looked like had it have been built 50, 60 years ago. So believe it or not, this map was actually rescued by Alan Gardner from the bin. And what we can see here is the actual location map for the proposed development of Zooland Limited. And what we can see here is the Abbey Meadows, which are still evident in Redditch and enjoyed by dog walkers, and are also a fantastic space for native wildlife. And what we can see in this area here, albeit a bit faded, is Bawdsley Abbey, that ancient monument which was founded in 1140 AD and was ruined at the request of Henry VIII when he dissolved the monasteries. We can also see over here the original Redditch Cemetery, which has since been expanded to include the crematorium, and we can see obviously the River Arrow flowing all the way around this particular site. We can also see those ancient fish ponds which were used by the monks for their food, and we can see also the Forge Mill Visitor Centre and the Needle Museum, which are still there today and obviously have been taken over and are now run by Rubicon Leisure Group to provide an outstanding tourist experience. So this is one of the maps which has kindly been donated to us today by Colin Cook, and what we can see essentially is the red line for Colin's proposed development. We can see these areas of the map which have been shaded in red. This would have been Redditch Zooland Limited had it been approved by the local authority back in the 1960s. This map really just shows the sheer extent of the economic development since Colin's original proposals. In this land, the other side of the River Arrow from Abbey Meadows, we can see now in the modern day Abbey Hotel and golf course. We can see on the site of this old dairy at the most southern corner of the map where Sainsbury's is today. It's a completely different landscape from what it was back in the day when Colin tried to build Redditch Zoo land here. We can see that his plans actually incorporate the scheduled ancient monument of Bordesley Abbey, and I'm not sure how historic England would feel about that in the current day. And also those ancient fish ponds are also included within Colin's plans. And I know, having spoken to Colin and also other stakeholders in his original project, that he had intended to put things like sea lions and penguins into those fish ponds. There was also an intention to create a deer park with a wet moat all the way around it to create a natural barrier between the visiting public and also the exotic animals which he was hoping to display. So here we have the original plans for phase 1 of Redditch Zooland, and what you can see in this southwesterly corner is there would have been an entrance from adjacent to the Bordesley Abbey monument, and people would have walked through into a series of landscape paths. If you'd have gone immediately left upon entering the zoo, you would have been able to discover aviaries for tropical birds, and there also would have been a restaurant for visitors. At the central hub of the zoological collection, there would have been a monkey house, a monkey temple. This was a very traditional way of displaying monkeys back in the 1960s and early 1900s, and essentially it would have been a series of small cages which would have been completely unsuitable by today's modern standards, but this would have displayed lots and lots of small primate species for the paying public to look at. Over on the eastern side of the site, there would have been more aviaries, but also there would have been landscape lawns, which would have given it a really pleasant feeling for the visiting public. And then towards the most southerly part of the site, we would have seen further lawns and gardens, but also a series of big cat enclosures, cat pens as they are described on this map. And these would have been home to African lions, Sri Lankan leopards, Siberian tigers, and of course these enclosures would have been completely unsuitable, especially considering today's standards, and resemble nothing like what Heart of England Wildlife Park are proposing for its animals. But nonetheless, it is very interesting to see these proposals for the zoological gardens in Redditch, and to see how, Redditch would have been a completely different place had this zoological collection been built. Maybe we would have had the same amount of economic opportunities as a place like Bristol and Chester, which obviously developed zoo gardens throughout the 1900s, and maybe Redditch would have had a much more opportunities for families to experience weekends. Maybe we would have seen multiplier effects with additional leisure facilities opening, rather than the current situation where there is limited offerings for families. And obviously Heart of England Wildlife Park are doing our part to try and make sure that we can change that for future generations.